Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
We had a very fulsome 2 days with the Chinese delegation led by Vice Premier Ho Lifeng. It was our third meeting. I'm happy to say that London built on Geneva, Stockholm built on London and Geneva. I think we had great momentum going into the meeting thanks to the president's trade deals. I think that the Chinese were surprised by the magnitude of the Japan deal, by the magnitude and the terms of the European deal. So I think that they were they're never compliant, but I believe that they were in more of a mood for a wide-ranging discussion. The discussion centered on the two economies. We had a very in-depth report on them on the Chinese economy. We gave a very detailed report on the U.S. economy. We talked about the trade deals that we were doing with other countries. We expressed our concern about Chinese overcapacity globally and what that might mean for this year, for the next few years. We expressed our concern for their purchases of sanctioned Iranian oil, of which they buy about 90%. We also expressed our regret that we believe that they had sold Russia about 15 billion of dual-use technologies. But the overall tone of the meetings was very constructive, and I will pass it over to Ambassador Greer.
Thank you. We also reiterated the premise of the president's trade program and trade policy, which is to reduce U.S. deficits, increase manufacturing, and reshore our economy. We made sure that they understood that these are the goals of what the president's trying to do. And again, we expressed our satisfaction that many of our major trading partners have come along with this. President von der Leyen on Turnberry on Sunday, when I was there, she specifically mentioned that the U.S.-EU deal is about rebalancing and trying to rectify the giant EU surplus with us. And so we've been happy to be working so constructively with many of our partners. And we had that kind of a discussion with the Chinese as well. And of course, we were here, in the first purpose to confirm the implementation of what was agreed in London in terms of accelerating the flow of rare earth magnets from China to U.S. companies. And then we were able to discuss further how to make sure that the entire U.S. supply chain, including those that go through third countries, could be accelerated. Thank you.
Welcome back to Whistleblower Wednesday. The Rob Maness Show's live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. Well, the China trade talks are in round 3, as you just heard. But, folks, with these guys, nothing is ever as it seems. You can count on it. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent headed into that third round of U.S.-China trade talks yesterday with high confidence, trusting President Trump to secure a China trade deal. We continue to make progress in those talks, as you heard, with these Chinese officials, while already having secured great trade deal frameworks with several of China's largest trading partners, including the EU, Japan, Indonesia, and Vietnam. And you heard Secretary Bessent talk about them being surprised by the extent of those trade deals. That's because President Trump is reigniting American industry by rebalancing global trade one country at a time. But at the same time, as my guest today writes in his latest newsletter, and I'll quote it here, for years, Washington has mortgaged America's future on the assumption that the world, particularly China, would always foot the bill. But that illusion is unraveling. Last May, China cut its U.S. Treasury holdings for the third month in a row, reducing its position to $756.3 billion, the lowest since 2009. That's a 30% drawdown over 4 years, close quote. Well, my guest today is Hunter Gaylor, executive partner and financial expert at the Market Bridge Advisors, a co-host and global markets contributor on the show New to the Street, which airs on Newsmax, Fox Business, and Bloomberg. And he's also an award-winning author of the book Planes, Plants, and Politics. And I love that title, being an aviator myself by profession. Hunter, welcome to the Rob Maness Show.
Great to be here. Very excited to talk about all of this. But yeah, what an amazing outfit of what's going on.
I'm excited too, because I'm not an economics expert. As a matter of fact, I was a B student in economics in college. I have to admit that all the time. but I like talking about it and the politics of it, and more importantly, the policy of it from the perspective that the president and the current administration are taking, is something I ran on before he ever ran for president, and that's to try to put Americans first in everything we do and how we think about these policies. As a matter of fact, breaking news just before we came on, the White House is announcing that Q2 growth was 3%, which kind of puts to rest the things during the Obama years. I think he said this, you'll never get above 2% GDP again.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's incredible. And what I've always said to people is, you know, you can't sit here and play Monday morning quarterback. This is a live action game that's going on. Just as we're sitting here, news is breaking. And this is very, very important, what's going on with U.S.-China relations. This directly affects what's going on with Russia. This directly affects what's going on, a lot of what we're going to be talking about today. And I just want the audience to know, you can't lose any sleep on this, because things are constantly changing, and these are real-time deal negotiations that are going on. So from an economic perspective, this is great news that we're getting reverse of the decline of the GDP to actually the increase of the GDP, which means we're getting America back to work, and we're getting America back to work in a productive manner, which is very, very important. Yeah.
One of the things that I saw, and I got a copy of the White House team's press release, is they talk about consumer spending growth acceleration and its impact on these second quarter numbers. When I think about GDP, though, I guess I'm an old school person. I think about production, gross domestic product, which to me says manufacturing. What's the difference between the two? And is that important to the average American consumer to understand that difference? Or should we just take the wins and move on?
No, it depends if you're a studier of history, right? Unfortunately, as great as all of the trade deals that Trump is doing and where he's positioning America first. Look, I write a newsletter for the American Wallet, which is one of my programs, and it's always America first. And so when you look at the difference between the gross domestic product of the United States, and you look at production versus consumerism, I mean, you still look, we've got trillions of dollars in credit card debts and unpaid student loans, car loans, car leases, all sorts of stuff. So you could spend, and America has always been a country with that has been a consuming country. And that's a very, very important thing to understand, because as America continues to spend, at some point that bill's going to be owed. Now, if you look at what's going on with China, and yes, it is good news that we see that, but you have to look behind, we'll call it the Fox News talking points, right? Maybe they should start watching your show so they could get more educated on this, because these are the questions that we should be diving deep, that we should be answering, but also questioning as well. Right? Are we seeing more American manufacturing? Are we seeing more American drilling? Are we seeing more American output? We are seeing lower gas prices and things like that are occurring, but are we seeing more drilling? Are we seeing more domestic production made in America, produced in America? So these are the things that really, the American people should be asking. And so that's why you have to look at the job numbers. You have to look at what the actual output of American domestic product is. And that's very important.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because, the White House, they drove the point home, Hunter, and that is that this growth is driven by the private sector, not government spending, and emphasize that government spending is down. I guess trying to, well, I know trying to get at one of the president's goals is to bring manufacturing home. Have we had enough time yet we know about the big investment dollars from all around the world, from different manufacturers, and including those right here at home and everything. But has there been enough time to reflect any increase in GDP based on an increase in manufacturing here at home yet, given that he's only been in office for 7 months now?
Yeah, no, there's not. The data doesn't support it. And, and this is what I say. Look, I'm an American first guy. I voted for Trump 3 times now. I supported everything that he's doing. But look, there is a very big swamp that he's had to deal with. And so when you're looking at what's going on, the sheer number of people, the consuming number of Americans versus and the working Americans versus we'll say the population of China. You got 1,200,000,000 people in China. You have a massive workforce that's able to create products at a much lower cost. You have India, the same. You've got these companies forming together in economic alliances like BRICS. And you have the United States that's still, the reserve currency of the world. But until we start emphasizing on bring things back to America, no, we haven't had enough time yet. And you're seeing that because you're having these trade deals being made. And the reason they're being made is, a tariff. And I just want people to know this. A tariff is another form of a tax that's passed on to the consumer. Okay, so if it's Europe and wine, my wine just got more expensive, right? Just for a very simple example. We can do more complicated ones, but that take a little bit longer to discuss. But the most important thing we have to look at is time. We're going into the midterm elections. People are going to be focused on, either reassuring their seats, and then you're going to have people look at the next presidential cycle. So while they're doing really great with these trade deals, it doesn't look at, are we increasing our gold and copper, productions? Are we are we bringing in rare earth minerals for the actual, military fighter jets, or critical rare earth minerals that are vital to the defense industry to be able to even build and manufacture the things that we're, selling to these various, countries. And so, yes, it's great to say we've committed to buy this, right? We've committed to make these $1 billion and multi-billion-dollar purchases, which is great. But now we have to fulfill those orders, right? It's great to say, as a business person, we run a big company. So when we're going around, it's great to say, hey, I got a contract. Look at this. Here's the paper that says it. But now I have to produce it. And so we got to see what those production numbers are. And that's very, very important. And it's kind of as we say, it's like voodoo economics, right? Ronald Reagan's voodoo trickle-down economics, right? And this is what it is. We have to see, if you take the defense industry, for example, or the big manufacturing sectors, like a Lockheed Martin or a Joint Propulsion Lab or L3 Harris or something like that, where they're making things, right? Or Silicon Valley, where they need it for chip manufacturing. And that's why Trump's trying to bring it here, because he knows that those are high-paying jobs. Those high-paying jobs create real wages. Those real wages allow people to buy a better house, a nicer car, give their kids a better education, hopefully not go into debt and be responsible. So there's a whole economic system here where global trade plays into this, right? So he's making good moves on the trade, but I don't want people to be distracted by bright, shiny objects. We still need to be I can't even speak today. We still need to be, straightforward and the word I'm looking for, I can't say it. I don't know why. But we need to be serious in the fact that we need to hold the government accountable, and we need to hold ourselves accountable that we keep our politicians, feet to the fire and say, look, you need to keep lowering taxes. We need the tax cuts. We need to get people back to work. We need a legislative infrastructure that supports economic growth, both on, you will say, Wall Street and Main Street.
Oh, absolutely. I love how you said that. We've got to have a legislative infrastructure that goes along with this. And look, we got to take our first break here, Hunter. When we come back, I want to dive into your article you wrote about the Chinese selling off their debt and some other things that we see Chinese people doing, like the home market, getting into the home market a lot nowadays. But we've got to stay focused on the future and stay focused on the reality. And one of the things I look for is locally and in my state is groundbreaking for new manufacturing. I try to keep an eye on that, but that's not sexy. The national guys don't at Fox News and CNN, they don't cover those very often. You got to get down to the local level. But I'm also interested in ramping up production from existing manufacturers, and that's something you just touched on. So we'll be right back with Hunter Gaylor, and we're talking the economy today as it's related to China, especially. It's a big deal. I'll be right back.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
Fox Business is on Capitol Hill with more. Hi, Grady.
Dana, good morning to you. The National Association of Realtors says Chinese buyers spent just about $14 billion on U.S. houses and real estate from April of last year through March of this year. So here are the numbers. That's a small fraction of total purchases during that time, but it's an 82.6% increase from the prior year. Most buyers, they say, are using cash, and those buyers report that the purchases are for personal use. Here's why Senator Rick Scott says that's still a big problem.
Every Chinese citizen is responsible by law to spy on Americans. Okay, so why are we allowing them in our country and buying our land? We create more opportunities for Americans to buy homes. That's what we should be doing. We should be doing everything we can up here to help Americans afford a home, get a great education for their kids, get a job, and keep them safe.
And if this feels familiar, it's because it's akin to something else we've talked about a lot. That is Chinese entities that are buying farmland in the United States. That's something that the Trump administration is trying to tackle, and something that former Senator Joe Manchin talked about when he returned to the Hill this week. He said that United States entities should reciprocate in China by buying up their land. A bipartisan group of lawmakers also recently introduced a bill, Dana, that would increase oversight on foreign ownership of U.S. farmland. Dana?
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show here on Worldview Tube, and we're live on our X Spaces too. My guest today is Hunter Gaylor, the CEO of Market Bridge Advisors and an author and of a great sounding book, man, Planes, Plants, and Politics. I love it. I got to get a copy of that book. I haven't had a chance to read that one yet, but that's exactly the type of thinking we need in America today from folks in the business community, is thinking about things like plants, manufacturing plants. But we've also got to face the reality that we coupled with China decades ago from an economic perspective. And the situation can be, I'll just say it, it's dicey when we're dealing with China and how it impacts the American economy today. And Hunter, before we went to the break, we were talking about manufacturing, and I have to give the Trump administration a little bit of kudos. They did put out in their press release that automobile output has risen 35.5% at an annual rate, which is a big increase, biggest one since 2020. And manufacturing output surged 1.8% in the first 5 months of the administration. But we need to see a lot more of that, don't we?
Rob, my audio just went for some reason, but I should get you back here in a second. So I apologize if you can't hear me. So just give me 1 second. I think my audio just went. I apologize.
Well, while Hunter's getting his audio sorted out there, we'll just talk about that in manufacturing. Those are the indicators that Hunter said we need to be looking for. And while they're small indicators, they're moving in the right direction. And we need to continue to insist that our legislators are putting together legal infrastructure and legislative infrastructure that enables more increases in manufacturing, especially in highly sensitive, sought-after industries like rare earth minerals, which are needed for national security purposes in our defense industry. And everything we do almost today can be used as a dual-use technology in the defense industry. And the more of that we have here at home, the less reliant we are on China, especially China, who is an adversary, folks. We have to own up to that and admit that to ourselves as we are moving forward. And that makes it all that much more important that we continue to see this activity from the administration on the trade deals, on bringing manufacturing home in these, especially the key industries, and increasing our energy output. The deal with the European Union that was made, the part that's not being reported on very much is the deal that the president struck with the EU buying liquefied natural gas. I have run for office on that energy output and energy independence on that particular type of energy since 2013, because liquefied natural gas plants, import and export plants, and transportation systems is key, but you have to have the markets that go with it. And to have the EU sign up to, I think it was over a $600 billion liquefied natural gas program is absolutely incredible for the United States. And Hunter, I think we've got you back there. What I was talking about was the manufacturing numbers that the Trump administration did put out, saying we've seen increases of 35.5% at an annual rate in the auto industry. That's good, bigger since 2020. So that's a good indicator. We need more of that, though. Manufacturing has increased 1.8% since in the first 5 months of the Trump administration. That's momentum, I think, that he started getting the second he won the election. And they saw that the Biden administration was going to go away because it was like minus 0.07 growth in manufacturing in the last 5 months leading up to when Trump took office. So those are all good numbers. But we need to see a lot more of that, don't we? Because China, we coupled with them intentionally decades ago to try to change them. And they ended up really getting so embedded in our systems economically, industrially, digitally, legally, that now you just saw, I don't know if you saw the report coming in here, they're buying more homes than any other Americans are buying here. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about that, especially as it could be weaved into your article you wrote about the Chinese selling off U.S. Treasury debt. It's just a very interesting situation we find ourselves in.
And, you know, the clip that you played was Senator, Rick Scott. He's my senator for the state of Florida. And, you know, the problem with, and I'm a huge Rick supporter fan as well, but the issue that you're having is, once again, it's sheer numbers. OK, if you look at our population minus all of the illegal immigrants that are coming out, and if you're looking at the deportation numbers, those need to increase rapidly. The reason they're buying farmland is because, you know, strategically, America has always been the breadbasket of the world. And so, you know, you've got real serious farming technology and agricultural technology and energy output in the United States. And now they're selling off our treasury notes left and right to the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars. No one is buying up U.S. treasury notes, which is a real concern that we need to face. And now they're moving here because, wait a second, I just sold hundreds of billions of dollars worth of cash in China. Now let me use that and come over to the United States and buy it because now we have the money to do so. And so, you know, this is a real problem that we need to address. And my issue that I have here is, you know, if you're going to come in here and build manufacturing on a local level, and you're some sort of a Chinese technology or company, and you're going to come here and build, then and we know that they're spying on us, then bring them here and let's spy on them. I mean, what do you want me to do? Like, I'd rather take their money than them take our money. every day of the week because we need to be a powerhouse in manufacturing. If you look at Detroit, if you look at any of the places throughout the Midwest that were massively, boom town, right? You looked at what we did with companies like Pan American Airlines, where Howard Hughes building the jet age, the Ford Model T, the industrial complex of America, right. Chicago, roaring Chicago. Now these places are crime-ridden, Democrat-led, unsafe, disgusting places. So as a business person, I'm not going to go build a manufacturing facility when I know that I've got all this ESG crap and everything that was going on with the Democrats and whatnot. So, we need to take this very seriously. And I almost have to say we need a war on manufacturing, right? We had a war on drugs. We need now a war on manufacturing. Manufacture here. When Newt Gingrich did a policy with America, right, when he was Speaker of the House, it was and ran for president. He said, we want to drill here, drill now, pay less. Well, we should be making here, making here and making it for less. That's why it's very difficult to compete with China because of the labor force. And here we're not going back to the fundamental roots of manufacturing. We need the welders, the builders, the people working the farmlands, the American worker, like what it used to be. Here in my office, we have photographs from all around during the Industrial Revolution. And you would have people, back in the day, I'm sure your audience has seen some of the pictures. These are guys, the black and white guys, they're 50 stories up in New York City having lunch, sitting on beams high above, no safety harnesses, no nothing. This was the tough American patriotic worker that fought for his country, died for his country, built this country. We built one of the greatest countries with the most beautiful cities, and now they're all going down the tubes because of this Democrat leadership and ridden crime. But while Trump is in right now, and we have control of the House, and we have control of the Congress, he needs to come in and make executive leadership decisions to unleash the American workforce. This is just as much a vision of going to Europe and putting them in their place with taxes and tariffs, right? We need to give us, the entrepreneurial builder, the ecosystem and the economic landscape with low interest rates so that we can go afford homes, so that we can go out and hire people and build things and sell things. And that's what we need to do. But unfortunately, if we look at our education system and just, the what I call the fleeting winds of the 24-hour news cycle and our access to, every changing story. Think about it. We were talking about trade. First of it was Iran, the bombing of Iran. Iran. Oh my gosh, bad, bad, bad. How's that going to affect China and Russia? Bad, bad, bad. And then all of a sudden, everything was going like, oh, we have all this Trump, and now we have Epstein files, and we're distracted. It's one big giant distraction, and I hate it, right? That's why it really is an information war, and that's why it really is important for people to seek out alternative forms of information. Even whether it's and I don't want to speak negatively of it, but there's a difference between the standard talking points of Fox Business or Newsmax or any of these other ones. I applaud them in their conservative coverage, but let's look at the numbers. Let's look at the real numbers. Are we holding our Republicans accountable, right? Why are we going into a recess? We should be working and holding our elected officials accountable by saying, help us on Main Street, help the local business owners, the coffee shop owners, the butchers, the people working in the agricultural lands, right? Stop coming out with massive omnibus spending bills and all of this other stuff. Help the American people, and that starts in your local areas, right? We could talk big, broad approaches, but at some point you're going to come down to states' issues, and we should hold a lot of the states' feet to the fire in this, right? And so we have to be very vigilant on that. And that was the word I was thinking of earlier, is vigilant. We cannot take our eyes off the prize when it comes to economic policy and conservative economic policy. And I'll be the first to say it. As a Trump supporter, right, for various things, I can also be critical of some of the decisions he's made and some of the rhetoric that he's used. That being said, if I'm going to cast blame on anyone, if I'm going to look at economic policy on anyone, it starts at the home, right? Is my home's economic situation in place? Is my family taken care of and my children provided for, right? And is my business healthy? And are my employees doing? So it starts there with good money management and good economic policy decisions. And from there, it goes up, because if you can have a strong family, that produces a strong community, a strong county, state, all the way up to a federal government. This makes a strong country. And that's the economic mindset that has to start with the voter. And then that voter has to maintain, right, holding their politicians' feet to the fire to make sure that they're representing us properly.
Oh, you're absolutely right, man. On this network and this show, we don't do the cheerleading stuff like some other networks do.
Yeah,
we just try to ask. We just try to ask and get answers to good questions to help the American people. Unfortunately, we got to take another break. When we come back, though, I want to dive into one of the things you were talking about, and that is, how do we help the American people while the Chinese are able to sell off their debt and spend money here and take over things that really Americans should want to be buying and do want to buy, like homes and farmland and those kind of things? And how do we do that? And where should we be doing that at, as far as how do we confront it? And what's the best path for Americans to be first? We'll be right back with Hunter Gaylord.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work, try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home, went to bed.
Oil, did you tell them they're on notice, they need to start to pull back?
Well, we described, it's not just the president, what is making its way through the U.S. Senate, and hard to imagine anything could get 80 or 90 bipartisan votes in the U.S. Senate, is a bill that will give the president discretion to apply secondary tariffs on sanctioned Russian oil from, I believe it's from 0 to 500%. I believe he's used 100%. And we've heard from several of our European counterparts, NATO allies, even Canada, well, Canada is in NATO, that they will be following on that. So we would expect most of the Western alliance that has been supporting Ukraine to follow on that. So I think anyone who buys sanctioned Russian oil should be ready for this.
What was their response to that warning?
The Chinese take their sovereignty very seriously. We don't want to impede on their sovereignty, so they'd like to pay 100% tariff. But
welcome back to the Rob Maness Show, and that's one of the things that the president of the United States is a very smart man, very intelligent. So is Secretary Bessent and his whole team, President Trump's team that he's put together at the top levels are really doing and think from an amazing perspective. My guest today is Hunter Gaylord. He's the CEO of Market Bridge Advisors, author of the book Planes, Plants, and Politics. And an expert on the economy, has several shows for that. Then we've been talking about his article and the trade talks with China and the complexity that we have here, Hunter. We were talking before about how they've sold off their debt. Now they're able to buy more houses than us, more farmland than us. They're probably going to come here and do manufacturing if we allow them to. Although I would highlight that Americans need to understand there are no such things as non-communist Chinese party entities coming to this country. If it's a business, it's the Chinese Communist Party. If it's an individual, it's because the Chinese Communist Party has let them come here to buy that home, if that's what they're doing. So you always have to keep that in mind. But we have this conflict, Hunter, and you just saw a little bit part of it there with the secondary sanctions possibly being put on Russian oil. Well, the Chinese are buying a lot of that oil, and that's going to impact our trade relationship with China, isn't it?
100%. I mean, look, Russia's on the sanctions list. And, so as an American, I can't even deal with Russia. And so, unless you get OFAC approval or any of these other things. But I mean, I don't blame China. I mean, if I put myself in my enemy's, shoes, if you will, from an American perspective, what other choice do they have, right? Russia's right next door. They can say, hey, do you want my oil? They'll buy it. They can tell America to kind of go pound sand, and that's exactly what they're doing. And then they're going to say, oh, well, we'll hit you with the 100% tariff or 125% tariff, which is just going to be passed along to the American consumer, right, at the end of the day, right? Because think about it, if you're Alibaba, you're one of these big manufacturing companies, and you're shipping to the United States, who's going to end up paying that, right? So they're going to say, okay, well, that's 100% tariff. The company, if you're a business, I'm going to say, well, okay, I got to increase my prices. So who gets the butt of it, right? It still kind of hurts the American consumer a little bit. Now, unless this is a lot of, war gaming, which I believe it is, I think, Bassett said the right thing. He's like, look, stop doing this and come to the negotiating table. Trump isn't messing around. But once again, like you said, and you hit it spot on, and I've been saying this like a broken record, you think China's going to come over here, start buying up houses, move in next to me into my nice neighborhood, right? You got another thing coming because look, I'm 35 years old. I speak very, very well. I know, a little bit of languages here and there, but I'm not learning Mandarin Chinese, right? This is America. This is an English speaking language. And, if I, Chinese food, yeah, every once in a while is good. Don't mind it. Okay. A lot of MSG in it, but that's okay. But the fact that you're coming here, taking my houses, my property, because all of a sudden now you have the money to do it, it's a tough pill to swallow when you really think about it. Because if I look at even my peer group of people that run large organizations or anything like that, there's a very tough competition of people. Well, let's not say tough competition. Let's just be very fact of the matter. I don't see a lot of kids coming out of the college and university systems coming out and say, hey, I can't wait to go be a farmer and buy farmland and start producing almonds, right? Or melons or whatever it may be, or start a banana farm or whatever it may be. I don't see that happening, right? They're going into tech and AI. Well, where's the majority of that education coming from? China. Right? They're the ones creating the batteries. They're the ones that the rare earth minerals. They're the ones sending us everything. So at some point, the U.S.-China economic meeting that they're having needs to be very, very serious. And we need to ask ourselves, and Senator Scott, going back to the clip you said, he was spot on. Why are we allowing this? You put a migration or an immigration moratorium on, and it's like, what do you do? They have enough money now. They can go to the Trump golden visa program or the golden card where, hey, here's $5 million or whatever. Are they all Chinese that are coming over here? So it's like, hey, I'm a Chinese guy. Let me pay to be a spy and go live over there and build a company over there and bring a bunch of my Chinese work labor force in there and start building battery manufacturing facilities and everything else. That's a real thing. And that's really happening. I mean, that's what I want your viewing audience to know. I'm in the business. I'm in the market. That is happening every single day.
Yeah, and you mentioned in the last segment, we got a hand up in the audience. I'm going to take a question from him here real quick. But you mentioned in the last segment about state level government and local level government, and that they've got to do their part. This farmland issue is a state government issue. That's where that is settled. Whether foreign nationals are able to buy and own your farmland, and right here in Mississippi, we have a law that says they can't do it, but there's no enforcement mechanism on it, according to what the ag commissioner told me when I first met him. So we've got to get that straightened out, too. Well, let's go ahead and take this question from the audience. Go ahead. Patriot Rob's our host over there. Go ahead, Rob.
Hey, Colonel, we have Wib. Go ahead, Wib.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Colonel. Thank you, Mr. Gaylor. My question is, during the Biden administration, there was the common theme of did not meet expectation. And during both the first Trump admin and now in this administration, we're seeing, exceeded expectation. How much of these forecasts that these quote unquote experts are giving out are steeped in politics instead of the hard numbers? Because Trump is dealing just with financial things that they should be expert in. He's not using some mojo magic, correct?
I mean, I could take that question. I'm sure that you would agree with me, but even if you look at you have to look at the numbers because the numbers don't lie, right? Numbers are there. Now, unless they're forging the numbers and fudging the numbers, which they could very well be doing, right, for whatever political gain or things, you have to look at it from that perspective, right? Just because you say that you're a Republican, right, does it really mean that you're voting in the direction of the we'll call it American fiscal conservative policy? And the answer is no. And so, a lot of these so-called experts or talking heads, don't run businesses. They're panelists. Just like I say, when these journalists are out there and say, oh, we're reporting, you're not reporting, you're reading on a teleprompter. I have no teleprompter in front of me. Okay. This is straight off the cranium. And so, at the end of the day, when you look at the numbers and you see what the actual reports are, and I would even encourage you, go look at what the deportation numbers are. Go look at what the car manufacturing prices are. Go look at all of this stuff. Look at the actual immigration numbers. Look at the EB-5 programs. Go look at it. So yeah, a lot of these forecasts are just witty little talking points out there to make a good soundbite, to say, hey, look, we've got a strong brand and Trump's doing a great job and all of that. Trump is still fighting a bunch of internal problems within the deep state. And these Epstein things are a perfect example. First, there was something. Now there's not anything. Now there's something back. Now we're going to do that. So it's like, I always say, there's a saying kind of in the South, and in Florida, you kind of have to go north to go south, right? But it's don't piss on my boot and tell me it's raining, right? And a lot of times that's what these politicians do. And that's what a lot of these broadcasting networks do. And it's it's almost like you're in a situation to where, and I appreciate the caller saying this, is you're almost in a where you're in a microcosm of you're just believing everything that you read, right? And because it's on this network, I believe it, right? And that's the problem with a lot of these things. I mean, that's why it's TV programming. I mean, think about that, programming. And so that's why I encourage people, do your own research, look at your own numbers, come to your own conclusions, and then based on those conclusions, when you walk into your voting booth, decide accordingly, and then hold them to accountability.
Yeah, that's a big challenge that we have in this country, is holding the politicians accountable. Look, I'm a Republican. Other than a very short period of time in my adult life, I've been in the Republican Party, and I've always voted Republican. But we have an incumbent problem in our party. We love our incumbents way too much, and that prevents us from holding them accountable. And it's a direct correlation to some of these outcomes that we get, where they're not voting for the American fiscal conservative policy that they ran on. That's why I ran for office initially, was because we were putting Republicans in office that ran on one thing, and then they get into office and do the other. One of the questions that I had, it's kind of along the lines of what Wib was talking about, is what is the framework from a federal level that should be being put into place that follows up on what President Trump's policies are? I think most people that are objective understand what the president's trying to do and the policy direction, even with, there's disagreement on tariffs and those kind of things, but the policy direction and the objective is to rebalance trade and to get things right in that perspective so that Americans are treated fairly. But the legislature's really got to do some real things to put that in codification so that it's permanent, don't they? What are some of those real things?
Well, listen, I'm not the great prognosticator here, and nor do I claim to be. But let me just tell you, it's a very simple fact. The government which governs the best is the government which governs the least. And it's going to come back to states' rights. The federal government needs to get out of my business, get out of my home, get out of my business, get out of my family, get out of the way. Let the states decide. Let the states run. And as the age-old saying goes economically, money will go where it is treated best. And from a capitalistic perspective, that's what Wall Street looks at, and that's where Main Street looks at. If they say, look, I cannot afford to live in this city, I do not like the crime, I do not like the way it's going, you know, they'll pack their bags, they'll move to somewhere else. That's what we saw in Florida based on how the states handled the COVID situation. I mean, look at that. And so, you know, I always say, it's like, if you didn't like where you were living, you could pack your bags and move over the hill and start your own ville. That's how we got Huntsville and Robertsville and all these other things, because we're like, I don't like the way my city's being run. I'm moving out of this city. Right. And so from an economic perspective, the only reason you ever move are we'll go back to like the basic laws of necessity. OK. Money, which is pretty close to oxygen, you need it to survive in today's global economic system. And 2 is safety and security. Okay. If your place is not safe and secure, okay, you're going to move. Okay. And 2, you're going to move to somewhere you can afford. And unfortunately, too many people are making decisions based on only one of those aspects. Okay. Because I can't afford to move because of the way my city's run, or it's not safe here, but I don't have enough money, or you know, I can move, but I won't feel safe. So I mean, there's all of these things that are going on. But what the federal government has to do is focus on: do we have a strong military? Okay, do we have a strong defensible border? Okay, and are the citizens of my society free? Okay, that's really what it comes down to. Okay, and I'm not a guy that's going to go, you know, shout and wave and wear the MAGA shirts and the hats and throw up my hands. I'm going to say, are you doing what you're supposed to be doing? It's defending the Constitution of the United States and ensuring the safety of its citizens. Okay, and that's it. And if we're going into economic warfare, we should be prepared to support our president and its decisions in the leadership to say, if we're going to war, and you have to understand, the definition of war is to kill people and break things. Let's be very honest and let's not hold punches. Okay. You know, you're a retired military veteran. And so you know that when you go to war, you go in with the idea, I'm going to war to win. And there are things that's going to happen. People are going to die and things are going to break. And so if you're going to go into an economic warfare, you have to be prepared for that you're going to go into a place and you're going to break them and people are going to die. And when I mean die physically, and that's what's happening, because if you are putting tariffs and these people can't afford jobs, or we lose production value, then we can't eat, then we get sick, and then we die, right? I mean, I can't lay it out any clearer than that. Now, there's a lot of other little idiosyncrasies that go in there. I don't want to make generic broad statements, but I want people to start thinking about that from an economic level, right? Because when we talk about the markets and we say, the markets are up, well, your 401ks or whatever, but that's, you know, that may be good for now. But if you're looking at your 401k as your retirement, as opposed to what investments, what small business, how do I, you know, make sure things are good. That's how America has to be looking at it for itself. Am I safe and secure? And am I providing enough resources to my citizens, or getting out of the way to let my citizens run based on the ideas of the free enterprise system? Right? Milton Friedman talked about it, and Rand talked about it. All the conservative economists talk about it, and that's where we have to. That's where we have to go. You know, I always like going back to when you look at China. Well, let's be very frank. If you want, one thing that Trump did from an economic perspective is, if you have a child between now and I believe 2028, I don't want to be misquoted on that, so don't, you know, take that as science. But it's if you have between 26 and 28, if you have a child, the government will give you a special kind of account for that child, right? Which could equate, by the time he's 18 or she is 18, close to $250,000, I believe. I could be inaccurate on that because I haven't really gone deep into that aspect. But, we have a declining birth rate in the United States. We're slowly becoming, the white, I'll call it the WASPs, right? The white Anglo-Saxon Christian or Protestants or whatever you want to say. We are unfortunately becoming a serious minority. We're not having kids. We're not having families. You need at least 2.5 children per household to grow the population. Our population is not growing from a birthing perspective. If you just look at the numbers, that affects us economically over the past number of years. You look at the amount of abortions that we've had here in America due to Planned Parenthood. These are real statistical numbers, like the caller said. Look at the numbers. That's a declining birth rate. That's going to affect manufacturing, production, a labor force. And we're seeing declines in that. So we really need to get back to basics of growing a country. China did it where they were now limiting, and even in parts of the Middle East and everything, you look at the infertility rates now happening. The people aren't having kids. They had the one-child policy because China was growing so fast and so rapidly. India's got 1,200,000,000 people in it. So, these are serious things that's going to affect us. And now with BRICS, right? The one thing that I'm very scared about for America is gold has doubled in the past year. And number two, if America loses its reserve currency status in the world, we have a real serious problem, especially with all of the countries that are signing up for BRICS that are stabilizing their currency to raw rare earth minerals, whether it be gold or silver or whatever it may be. And you're seeing that effect play out on a world stage right now for anyone that's paying real close attention and reading between the lines.
You sure are. We got to take one more break, and when we come back, though, I want to talk about this term de-risking as opposed to decoupling and what that might mean, Hunter, and what Americans need to be thinking about, because that what you just said is critically important to understand, that we need to be able to live free, to defend ourselves, and to take the right actions at the right moment in time, or the worst can happen. We'll be right back with Hunter S. Gaylor.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. Melissa and I have been taking Bella Grace, this powerful elixir, since last fall, 2023. The results have been amazing. My hands would crack and bleed, deep cuts and cracks every winter for years. No matter what we did, we couldn't get them to stop cracking and bleeding. This year, I took Bella Grace, no cracking, no bleeding. My acid reflux, gone. Haven't had to take a Pepsid. My hair growth, the last 2 times I had my hair cut, the lady had to use thinning shears on my hair. That's amazing. We've also received incredible feedback from you, our listening audience, and the impact it's had for you. This is loaded with astaxanthin. That's a powerful antioxidant. Collagen, but top grade collagen. Studies show 95% of it is being absorbed in the body because of the way they develop it. Then we have something called cat's claw. That's an anti-inflammatory from a vine in Peru. It's the bark, and it's an anti-inflammatory. There are about 80 clinical trials on Bella Grace. Please get a subscription now and save. MelissaHouseBG.com.
Well, I don't think it's intentional. I think that what Secretary Hegseth did was remind everyone that during COVID, China was an unreliable partner, and what we are trying to do is to de-risk. We do not want to decouple, Margaret, but we do need to de-risk, as we saw during COVID, whether it was with semiconductors, medicines, the other products. We are in the process of de-risking.
Making the United States less reliant on China, but at the same time,
and the whole world, the whole world, because what China is doing is they are holding back products that are essential for the industrial supply chains of India, of Europe, and that is not what a reliable partner does.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show, and it's Whistleblower Wednesday, and my guest today is Hunter Gaylor. He's the CEO of Market Bridge Advisors and author of the book, Planes, Plants, and Politics, and has a lot of experience in supply chains, manufacturing, is a host of his own show that shows on places like Fox Business and Newsmax and those kind of places. And Hunter, when Secretary Bessent said that about de-risking, that's the first time that I remember hearing a senior leader put the relationship between the United States and China in those terms as to what the goal of the change that needs to occur is. I kind of like it. I just wanted to give you a chance to give your thoughts on it, especially with your background and your book that you wrote, Planes, Plans, and Politics in Manufacturing, and what Americans should be thinking about. I mean, I'm getting older. I'm thinking about, can I start a manufacturing plant somewhere that manufactures things that we need so we can get out of this risk that we're in with China? That's the kind of things that I think about even today.
Go for it, Rob. You can do it. You can do it. Light up that factory. I know you can do it. Look, it's very simple. And look, the de-risking versus decoupling, just for your viewing audience to understand, is very simple. De-risking versus decoupling. Decoupling is totally pulling away, meaning just total cut ties. But think of it like this for your viewing audience. Decoupling is the difference between de-risk and decoupling is like a divorce versus a prenup, right? We totally divorced from China and everything. Decoupling is a prenup. We're saying, look, we'll still trade with you, China, but you're not having the keys to the house, right? And I think that's a very important, simplified, kind of explanation of it, which I wish, Bassett and some of these other people would speak more, to the average American people instead of using some of these crazy economic terms. But I understand what he's saying, and he's totally right, because you have to understand how richly embedded China is from a manufacturing and a labor force perspective. America cannot compete with that. There's a company called BYD. BYD is a automobile manufacturer in China. It stands for Build Your Dream. Okay, that's what it stands for. And they are able to manufacture cars that are better than Teslas. I hate to say it. I mean, I've ridden in them and all throughout Europe and my time in Asia. And, this company is incredible, and they're growing, and they can take out Tesla in a matter of moments. That's why you're seeing the push like this, because, an American car manufacturer like Tesla could lose serious market share if BYD could import and not have to pay 100% tariff, because if they did pay, if they didn't have to do that, BYD could sell a $20,000 car in the US, a $20,000 car. A brand new all electric or hybrid, and they've got beautiful designs, unbelievable technology, and they're able to grow crazy. And their economy is growing at a very fast rate. If you look at what their growth rate is, and I believe last time was like 6.5% or something like that, they're just booming. Now, do they have a lot of problems? Absolutely. And we could do a whole show on just the China economic policies that they're running. But you look at how they march lock, stock, and barrel with how their emperor, controls them. Look at the infighting that we have in the House and the Senate. Look at the infighting that we have with our politicians. China, if you ever look at any of their meetings, the moment Xi Jinping walks in there and these people, I mean, it's like, look at how North Korea is. Things, regardless of what you think about it, those people follow those leaders. And unfortunately, in America, and I'm not looking at having a dictatorship, but, a benevolent dictator, which probably the only one that can do that is Jesus Christ. But at the end of the day, that's where we seriously need to look at to say, okay, are we going to stand behind the leadership? That's why I keep going back to accountability, because this is a serious economic position that we are in as the American people. If my dollar value goes down, my investments, my employees, all of the resources that I have, my family, my children are all affected on that. My food prices go up. My, toys for my kids that I buy that aren't made in America because, I can't find an American toy manufacturer, right? So I have to go to Amazon or something like that. Or they're shutting down and bankrupting companies like Toys R Us or anything else, or Lego. It's not made here. And so it's made in these other places because the labor force is so cheap, right? And less standards. Right. I mean, let's be frank. We have child labor laws here, right? They're not 13-year-olds working in New York City laying bricks anymore. It doesn't exist. We have child protective service. I mean, I could go down the list, right? Yeah. So, I mean, the conservative American people really need to look at this and see that what he's saying is absolutely true. I have no problem working with the Chinese. I know who they are. I know what they're capable of. But I'm also going to be fair and I'm going to be firm, right? I'm an American businessman at the end of the day, and I have to look after myself and my family and my business. And so do I want to work with China? Absolutely. Do I want to make money off of China? Absolutely. Do I want to get rich off of China? Absolutely. And that's how Trump is looking at it. The problem is you've got these U.S. politicians that have been in there since, you know, Moses was leading the Israelites out of Egypt that are still in office, that have made hundreds of millions of dollars, right? That have never created a single job and have never signed the back of a check or the front of a check, only the back of a check. Trump signs fronts of checks, okay? And he pays people and he builds things. So when he got in as American, kind of economic inspiration to say, look, I'm a businessman. Let's cut a deal, but I'm not going to get screwed. I know you want to screw me. I know you've been screwing me, but now we're done being screwed. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to say, listen, I've got a bigger military. I've got more nukes. I've got better forces, right? And I'm going to say, look, if you don't play ball, we're going to have some serious problems. But also we have to look out for our own people and what that would do to the global financial system if we did a full cutoff, right? So de-risking is the right thing to do. De-risking is the right thing to do. You need to have more of the Chinese companies paying American companies to do things here in America, right? And America first. So if you're going to build battery factories and maybe your battery technology is better than America's, build it in America with American labor. And so that's my message.
Well, thanks, Hunter. It's a great message. I'm going to hold you to the show on China economic policy. I want to do a show with you on how do you create a manufacturing plant in the United States in the 21st century, too. If we could get you signed up to do both of those over the next 6 months, that would be great. Thank you very much, my friend. I appreciate you coming on today. You can find him on X very easily at Hunter Gaylor, and it's amazing. This is the kind of information that we need. Tomorrow's Truth Thursday. It might be an open mic day, but I also might have a former CIA operative that can talk from an experienced perspective about Russiagate. So we're working on getting that guest. I'll see you then, Truth Thursday.